This is the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Hello and welcome to Chewing the Cud podcast, and with me today is
Sarah Bolt.
How are you going, Sarah?
I'm really good, thank you, Andrew. And how are things treating you?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously, clocks have changed. I expect we're all aware that winter is getting closer.
I know those evenings are drawing right in, aren't they? But the good news was I have been walking the dog in the light for the last few mornings. So, there are some positives.
Well, I know it does make it harder getting up. There was me in the summer getting up at 5 to ride the bike sometimes. And now it's like, oh, no, it's too dark.
It's a good excuse.
Yeah, I know, but it's not good enough. I haven't managed it the weekend, so that's not been so bad. Anyway, today we're going to talk about something that, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm quite passionate about, to be honest with you.
Quite?
All right, very passionate about. And we got a couple of other guests. It all came together simply because the three of us did some talks on a recent ALA meetings this year, and we shared between us some of the farms, the host farms, in terms of running the stations on different parts of the country. So I thought it was worth us all getting together and just having a chat about today's subject, which is CowSignals. And it's definitely something I'm very passionate about. And I certainly think anybody that has anything to do with cows should at least do the initial CowSignals course, even if you're just the guy that drives the tractor. That's not trying to knock anybody, but even if you're the guy that just feeds, and that's your interaction with cows is just feeding the cows, I still think it's really important to understand why you're doing what you're doing sometimes.
Yeah, see the world just a little bit differently, perhaps a little bit more as a coward.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because you might be in that tractor feeding, but you still should be there noticing some bullying going on, or if something's not right, to be able to pass on to whoever's the person that should be dealing with that problem or that issue. So just something I really enjoy. It surprised me. I've been running courses now for a couple of years. The first ones I was really a bit nervous of, but now I really enjoy doing them.
And so you should. It's a great topic, isn't it?
It is. I think so. Anyway, so hopefully, from my own personal point of view, I'll have some CowSignals courses shortly. Just got to confirm one or two things, so please keep an eye out for some dates, or obviously sign up on the website and we can be on the mailing list. But otherwise, let's go talk about CowSignals. This podcast has been brought to you today by Chewing the Cud Limited, who offer completely independent dairy and beef nutrition, CowSignals advice and training, along with ROMS mobility scoring. For more details on these and other services available, please visit our website www.chewingthecud.com or email us directly on nutrition@chewingthecud.com. Chewing the Cud Limited now offers first aid training from a registered first aid at work trainer and experienced minor injuries practitioner. For more details, please visit our website www.chewingthecud.com or email us directly on training@chewingthecud.com. Hello, I'm Andrew Jones.
And I'm Sarah Bolt.
And welcome to the Chewing the Cud podcast, a podcast for the UK dairy industry.
Farmer, advisor, processor, and everyone else. We have topics and episodes that will interest you.
We discuss the practical and the technical aspects of different UK dairy industry topics.
We aim to make you think about what you're doing and ask yourself, can it be done differently?
Listen to us speak with specialists from inside and outside the industry about their area of expertise.
Subscribe and listen to episodes for free on your favourite podcast platform.
Or sign up to our website www.chewingthecud.com for podcast notifications so you never miss an episode.
And links to our socials, including Instagram, Chewing the Cud Podcast. All one word, and remember, no G.
Or email us direct on podcast@chewingthecud.com.
If you like what we do, please share and leave us a review to show your support. And that's it. Enjoy today's episode.
Hello and welcome back to Tune the Cud podcast. And today our guests are Owen Atkinson from the Dairy Veterinary Consultancy Limited and Joe Speed from Joe Speed Coaching and People Development. Hello to you both.
Hello.
How is it? I mean, well, here in Dorset, it's a lovely wet day, so I'm sure it's probably the same where you are as well.
Yes. Yeah,
it's wet.
I've had my warning from the power grid just in case we lose electric, which means we probably will.
Well, fair enough. Anyway, we're talking about the weather again, as Sarah and I often seem to do. So we are here today really to talk about CowSignals. Now, CowSignals has been around for about 25 years. Obviously, that was developed by Job Driessen and Jan Hulsen from CowSignals in the Netherlands. But we thought we'd talk about it today as Joe, Owen and myself recently, or this summer, covered some farmer meetings for Arla, talking about an aspect of CowSignals. In particular, we talked about stress-free stockmanship. So we thought we'd have a good chat about just CowSignals and that in general. But before we start, like usual, Owen, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, gosh. So my name is Owen. I, as you say, have Dairy Veterinary Consultancy, which is what it says on the tin, really. That's my business. And the clue there is the veterinary. I am a vet by trade. I was your regular farm vet, if you like, for the first 20 years of my career. I started my consultancy business in 2013. So for the last 11 years, so I've been doing it for 31 years as a vet. And my role now is not your typical vet role. A lot of my work is training, consultancy within the dairy sector. My customers are obviously dairy farmers, but also ag businesses, milk buyers, pharmaceutical businesses. Sometimes there's a lot of demand for training within the dairy sector on all sorts of kind of herd health matters. And that's kind of who I am.
Who you are, fantastic. And Joe, what about yourself?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm Joe. Unlike Owen,
Sounds like we're in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Owen and I'm Joe. Sorry, I shouldn't, but you know.
Yeah, and unlike Owen, I don't think my business name quite captures what I do. But my background, I guess, I was born in a city. I was born in Sheffield, and randomly I wanted to go into agriculture. And that actually took me milking cows overseas for quite a number of years. And on my last job, quite a long time ago now, but I was in Portugal on a 1,000 cow unit, and I retrained as a foot trimmer. And so it kind of took me on a journey. I came back to the UK. I researched lameness as part of my dissertation. I did an off-field scholarship. And that's what led me into retraining as a CowSignals master in 2011. And because I was quite geeky about cows' feet, I guess, and I just thought, CowSignals is another signal that cows are telling us that my feet hurt. So, and then I've been doing it probably, on working with farmers, working with discussion groups. The coaching part of my business is latterly I retrained as a coach, a neuro-linguistic practitioner, and that I guess is the hub of my business. I do facilitation, I do coaching, and I do CowSignals and the cow handling. So quite a mixed bag.
Is that what NLP stands for? Is it? I knew you were NLP, but I have no idea what it stands for.
I think it's one of those woo-woo things, isn't it? That you kind of think, yeah, that sounds interesting. What is it?
Every day's a school day as ever, Andrew.
Well, exactly. And I know, obviously, from the conversations I've had with Joe about her becoming an NLP practitioner, I guess it's relevant because you said Yop is,
yes,
isn't you, for the CowSignals and comes in. But I mean, you've already sort of answered one of the questions, I guess, to both of you. What got you into CowSignals? How long have you been doing CowSignals?
Randomly, I was in Iran, in Tehran, in 2006, speaking at a dairy conference on mastitis.
That's definitely a different story.
And Yeep was there. I call him Yeep, you call him Yop.
Yeah, well, maybe I've got it wrong. It's,
We're talking about the same guy. Now, that would be in the early days of the CowSignals business, and Yeep's business partner, as you know, is Jan Hulsen. And this is a compliment to you. If he listens to this, I don't want to take it at all as any other way. But I always see the partnership as a great partnership between Joop and Jan. Joop being the showman and the communicator, and Jan almost being the brains behind the concept, because Jan's background was very much, as I learned when I got to know Jan. He did an MBA, so it was in business management and some of the models that are used in that, and he brought them to life for dairy farmers. And Joop is such a great communicator. And I heard Joop speak, and you have to imagine this conference in Tehran. I'd been told to play it very straight. I was in Iran, didn't want to cause any diplomatic incidents, so I was there with my best suit on, borrowed from my father-in-law, no jokes, absolutely stuck to the script. Joop came on stage, bouncing on, no toning it down at all for the audience. He was telling dirty jokes. He was showing pictures of cows jumping on cows and making all sorts of innuendos about it, and all in the spirit of delivering a CowSignals training. And the audience loved it. I mean, they're all laughing, and it made me feel a fool, because I'd sort of treated this audience as if they were not human beings, and Jan had just treated them as human beings, which of course dairy farms in Tehran are just as, they've got the same bawdy sense of humour as they have anywhere else in the world, and they loved it. So that introduced me to the concept of CowSignals. I thought it really fitted well with my kind of interests in dairy herd health and being able to discover more about what cows are telling us from different things. And of course, that's what CowSignals is about, learning a lot about their environment and their feeding and the management from what they tell us, the signals. So that got me into it. And then I arranged training for myself and a couple of other vets in the UK very soon after that, in 2007. And I think we were probably the first UK trained CowSignals trainers back in 2007.
Yeah. No, cause but you're right. I mean, I just think when you think like the CowSignals course, and I know there's a particular picture that I show up when I do it, and you go, "Where's this?" And people go, "Well, I don't know. This is just various places." And you go, "Well, it's Iran," and they just are amazed that there's this picture of a lovely shed in Iran full of dairy cows. So as you say, they're all over the world. From my own experience of selling cattle to, Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Mexico, China, Pakistan, they all want them, and certainly Asia and that always wants a more dairy-based diet.
And what I love about cows, because I don't travel as much as I'd quite like, really, but I do travel quite a lot, and it's one of the nice parts of my job. It does get me I do get the ability to travel a bit. And cows are a common language. And I really learned that in Tehran, because it was probably it was the most kind of unusual country I traveled to at that stage of my career. And I went to a large dairy herd, and straight away I clicked very well with the herds manager, who was about my age. And although we were sort of, his English was better than my Persian, but we sort of managed to communicate a little bit by mime and pidgin English. But we just found that we had so much in common, and the cows were our common language, and the problems that they were seeing on their farm with their cows and the pleasures they got from them as well are just the same as what I was used to. And that was brilliant.
I would back that up, because I was remembering a memory to someone the other day, actually. I remember being in far north Queensland when I farmed up there, and there's me, basically a pom, in the top of Australia, talking about cows with this Canadian about genetics. And as you say, the common language was cows. It's that love of cows. It doesn't matter where you're from in the world, you will find that ability to communicate with each other because you love the cows. Joe, you sort of hinted at it a little bit. What about yourself?
Yes, so I was pretty geeky about cow's feet when I came back from Portugal, and I did my degree. I joined Promar and I joined AHTB, and that really gave me the opportunity to continue to develop sort of my lameness passion, I suppose. And the first thing I probably in 2007 was I launched the industry dairy co-mobility score. And that kind of then thought, well, what am I going to do next? And I got the opportunity through HTB to go and do the CowSignals course. And as I say, I primarily did it because I was really interested in my research at Harper. Actually had been around human and cow interaction on cow tracks. And one thing I found was that you can have the best cow tracks in the world, but if you've got poor handling, then you're going to get lameness. And so it got me really interested in, where do we fit in this then? Because there's obviously more than I'd originally thought about. And I knew that Europe did the CowSignals, and I say Europe, which is different to...
Yop, Yeep and Yip.
Maybe we will get him on one day and ask him what's the best way or the correct way to pronounce.
And I knew Europe was part of the CowSignals is the People Signals course, which is, how do we facilitate learning? How do you get information across when you're speaking to farmers? And when I was at HTB, I was working as a facilitator. That was one of my big jobs there. And so
alongside me.
I know, alongside Sarah.
They're together.
Yay.
Yeah.
So I was really interested in not only, the cow side of it, but where do we fit in? And then how do you support other farmers in learning that and taking it on board and making it practical? And in HTB, we were very much trying to be driven by, research into practice and knowledge into practice. So I guess, it was all of those elements that drove me to do it. And then, as I say, I've used it probably like yourselves in various ways, working with discussion groups and various events where I've used it. And as you said, Andrew, more latterly where we've done the roadshow looking at cow handling. But I think the impact on lameness, which is probably still my geeky core interest, is just a really massive part for me when I'm thinking about CowSignals.
So some good stories there about where people have come from and where they've got it.
We've not heard from you, Andrew, because I know I've worked with you this summer, but I'm not quite sure of your backstory on the CowSignals.
On the CowSignals, that's a good question. I think it was probably on my radar when I sort of came back from Oz. So what was that, 2008? There's something I wanted to do and was there a long time, and it sort of didn't happen. And then in the end, I probably started doing it. I can't remember. I originally I got, I expect you guys know Mike Chown. I got Mike Chown to come and do a course for a group of farmers I was looking after. Yeah, it would have been 2018. And, this is a room full of farmers that between them had, hundreds of years of experience. And myself, worked with cows all my life. And then he went through the course, and it just sort of, those moments twig on you and you go, oh, I didn't realize, or I didn't know. And the room was full of experience that you just don't click sometimes. And I've had it. I remember the very first course I ran, I had a 2IC from a farm literally lean back in the chair halfway through the course. And you looked at him, you could see his brain going tick, 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 tick. And then he suddenly sat up bolt right and went, now I understand why those cows weren't lying in that row of cubicles. And you're like, yep, he's got it. And I suppose it went from there, and I wanted to do it. And I got to be honest, I did it a bit differently in the end than some people. I ended up doing most of it online, probably sort of COVID-y sort of time, or was it just before? I can't remember. But I did then have another couple of sessions with Mike over time, actually on farm, doing stuff. And I know he first did the first time I ran People Signals he ran it with me and someone else. But like you're mentioning it, Joe, that People Signals I find brilliant. I've done a number of different ones over the years, but I found the People Signals one, I keep saying I must do it again and never get round to it, is the best one I've ever done in terms of reading people and understanding people a little bit more, or the interactions of people. It's really, really interesting.
I think, Andrew, it's interesting in what you've just picked up there as to what you're actually looking at when you're perhaps having those discussions with farmers and everything else, but sort of going back to basics. You're talking about CowSignals. For somebody that's not actually come across this term before, what is it? And what is it that you're all three of you are so excited about?
I don't know. I suppose that the I don't know about the other Owen and Joe, but I know certainly when I always start with my presentation, if I'm doing the initial CowSignals course, is I always put a quote up there. And again, I think it came probably from Mike originally and sort of adapted it, that basically the best will in the world for me these days as a nutritionist, I can only influence but the best, probably 25% of your production. It's the rest that goes with it. It's the light, it's the air, it's the space. I can't remember what the other 6 are off the Diamond off the top of my head now. Sorry.
Rest.
Yes. But, it's all of those things and the influence that they have. And as you say, it's the half the time you don't realize you know it already, isn't it? I think when you do the courses with people and then the light suddenly goes on and it's like, you knew they knew it. They just hadn't put it from a cow's point of view. It's looking at things from a cow's point of view to maximize things from a cow's point of view.
So we call YOP, YOOP, and YERP 3 different ways. We're now going to define cow signals in 3 different ways, but in a good way. I like your definition and description, Andrew. The one I use commonly is just as a very quick headline of what cow signals is. It's learning from the body language of the cows and the herd, and they're 2 different things, because the herd shows signals which are different to an individual cow, in order to improve our management.
Well, I mean, I know I've added to mine recently. Old Gordy Jones was back over here last year, and his quote was, "Milk is the abstinence of stress." And I've now added that on to my presentation and credit it to Gordy. But milk is the absence of stress. If we get it right, and I guess an example I often use, there's a picture in there of a cow in a pen. And, when I grew up, we were building a breeze block walls, 6 foot, well, probably a bit exaggeration. I do know a few like that, but 5 foot tall or whatever. So the cows couldn't see her herd mates and that. And it's little things like that, isn't it? About seeing their herd mates and they settle better and they can see their mates and just little things. Some of the things are so small, but they make such a difference.
Jo, what's your 3rd definition?
My definition, you said it would be different, Owen, and it will be. I think the one that's stuck in my brain is seeing life through the eyes of the cow. Because I think it's very easy for us to Yoke calls it owner-itis, doesn't he, where we just get used to seeing stuff. And that's just life. That's not farming or anything, that's just isn't, like driving down the motorway. You suddenly think, did I indicate there when I pulled out? It's the same thing. And so I think it's seeing life through the eyes of the cow, but not just for the owners. I think what we stressed when we did the tour this summer when we were presenting was, it's really important when you're training other people in your business to see life through the eyes of your cows, because actually they don't see like us. They see the world very differently. And the more we understand that, then the better sort of life cows have and the easier they are to handle, which makes life much easier for us in turn. So it's like a win-win-win-win-win-win-win situation.
So picking up on the word that Andrew used was stress, and it's not just cow stress, it's human stress as well, and both of those together
it's reminded me a little bit. Another thing I do like about the cow signals concept is it's a lot of it's around communicating the science that other people have done, and it does draw on all the knowledge that has been developed around dairy cows from around the world. So for example, Temple Grandin, who a lot of people would be familiar with, would be the scientist who's given us a lot of insights into how cows see the world, and that gets incorporated into cow signals. And that's just one example of how cow signals brings science to life for more farmers.
But yeah, I mean, I think as you said, Owen or Joe, which one of you, they're all 3 of our definitions there, or our interests then, or our perspective are different, but they're all very relevant, all very valid in the way. And just to finish Owen's question for me, interestingly, slightly off track, I suppose, but I got asked, could I do a grazing cow signals? So I contacted, I'm going to say YOP, it's just easier because I can't remember the way you do it. I contacted YOP and said, have you got a grazing one? And he goes, yeah, we haven't used it for a long time, but here you are. So I've got it here. It was all in Dutch and I have translated it. I just haven't run with it yet. But the funny thing is, I'm going through those photos going, I know who that is. I know who that is. I know who that is. So I emailed him and said, did you take these pictures in far north Queensland? He went, yeah, why? I said, because I can tell you that was my vet Bill Tranter from behind, and I'd recognise him after 20 years. And it was like,
you recognise his bottom.
Well, just him from behind and who he was with is like his brother and his sort of thing. And it's like, I know who that is just from and I haven't seen Bill probably for 20 years since we left Far North Queensland to go to Victoria. But it was just like, it's a bit like cows, isn't it? I didn't see my cows for 5 years and I can still tell you who they are going around the rotary, just looking at the udder. I suppose it's a similar situation. Anyway, so we spoke about how we all sort of got into it and how we look at it. But I suppose really, I guess that is the question. How do we convey to people, hopefully they're listening to us, you can see the passion that we've all got for CowSignals and the benefits we all believe it can. But I mean, I suppose, Sarah, you picked up on a little bit there. And I suppose we all covered it a little bit, didn't we, when we did the stress-free stockmanship. It's about making our life easier as well as the cow's life, because if the cow is expressing a more natural behavior, she's going to do what she wants to do, eat more easily, and therefore makes our life easier.
It takes me back to something that I remember covering, the Hemsworth cycle of stress, that if a cow gets stressed, then the human that's working with that cow gets stressed, and their stress then stresses out the cow, and then that cycle. So it's almost breaking that Hemsworth cycle, isn't it?
Sarah, it was almost like you were there at our Arla workshop.
I was going to say,
why wasn't I?
Was that the pig guy, wasn't it? Was he a pig guy? He did the work.
He did, yeah. Well, and cows.
So,
it was.
We did use that. So we did use it in our Arla workshops together. We had.
He's one of my heroes in life. His, looking at stockmanship skills and that side of it is.
And why it's important to enjoy your job and love your cows.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Is it Paul Hemsworth?
Yeah.
Was it from Melbourne? So again, like you said, Owen, it's pulling in different bits from all over the world, isn't it? But you say you can see it. If people don't enjoy what they're doing, it's that cycle. And I mean, I know I was, just talking to someone at the show the other day, and it was like, it's the same sort of thing. If you always start that milking 10 minutes early, you'd probably finish half an hour early. But you started 10 minutes late, you always finished half an hour late, even though there was 10 minutes. But then you get it in your head, and it's that cycle, isn't it, in your head, because you're thinking about it. It's the same with cows. If they start stressing you, it just cycles.
And can I just jump in? I think anybody that hasn't heard what CowSignals is, I think, Andrew, you alluded to it. Yoke calls it the CowSignals Diamond, doesn't it? But isn't it like six-sided? Is that?
Yeah, it's a hexagon, yeah.
And so the health's in the middle of the hexagon, which is what all the areas which we talked about. And then around the edge, you've got feed, water, light, rest, and space. And it's.
I'm glad someone can remember them, because I couldn't.
No, only because I've written them down.
It's usually I can remember 5 and never remember the 6. So
and the great thing about CowSignals is you can talk about all of those at a meeting, i.e. how much air is there in the shed, what's the water availability, how often are you pushing your feed up, all those kind of things. Or like we did recently at the meetings we just did over the summer, we focused on like the people handling part of that, didn't we? How we interact with cows. And I guess that's the great thing about CowSignals is there is something for everybody. You can do the whole lot and where it fits in with your business, and then how you use it with your team and your cows, or you can focus on just one area of it, because they all link back to health, and they're all hugely practical on farm.
I mean, you mentioned water. Funny enough, we did the epigenetics podcast recently, and it's interesting that one of the markers they've got was it hydration? I think they called it.
I think so, yeah.
And it just all, again, it was another way of explaining what we will talk about in CowSignals, that you need enough water space and all of this kind of thing. And it was actually, I suppose, a genetic marker that was showing that these animals weren't getting enough water out of it. And it's like, oh, that's another different way of looking at it.
Science on the next step.
Oh, I know, it's a bit scary, isn't it? It's a bit scary. But I don't know what your two thoughts are, but I know myself, I always suggest, I think everybody who has anything to do with cows, whether it's just the guy that's feeding the cows to the guy that's milking the cows, whatever, should do the initial basic CowSignals course.
Yep, I agree. And I extend that to vets. I'm always trying to encourage more vets to do it. And there can be some sniffiness around it amongst vets. I have come across that over the years, that it's not evidence based, and that it's it says things that aren't backed up by science and things like that. Sometimes I find CowSignals is ahead of the time. And I'll give you an example of one classic. I was talking about this with a bunch of vets earlier this week, and that is that in CowSignals parlance, we always talked about having 10 square meters per cow, but in a shed, in a cubicle shed, more of this story idea. And I received pushback on that, I remember, 10 years ago or so. And then AHDB sponsored some research, and they did a lot of research on what performance, what space allowance gives you the best performance for housed dairy cows, and it's 10 square meters. Hey. So eventually the science catches up, I think, sometimes with the common sense, perhaps. But you're right, Andrew. This is essential stuff for anyone who's working with cows.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I'd agree. I've had a few vets do courses with me, actually, which has been lovely. And at the end, they've sort of gone, yeah, that was good. We learned some stuff we had no idea about, because we're talking about it from a practical point of view, aren't we? We're not just going, oh, here, do this. And I guess another thing I always say is not to go home to mum or dad or the boss and say, right, you're going to knock everything down and start again, because wouldn't that be lovely? It doesn't happen. It's about trying to maximize what you've got in.
And it's bigger picture stuff as well, which I think is why I encourage vets to do it, because certainly as a vet, and this would be true, I think, for farmers as well, when they sort of go through college, you kind of learn diseases by you learn it in sort of systems. So you learn about mastitis and cell counts, you learn about lameness and feet, you learn about fertility. But actually, CowSignals, everything's interlinked. Everything is interlinked, and CowSignals is more about just looking at, well, we've talked about stress quite a lot, but looking at the system and the sort of overall well-being of the cows, because of course that has such a big influence on all the individual diseases. So looking at things in silos, just at, let's say, mastitis or just fertility or just nutrition, I don't think is necessarily as healthy as the CowSignals approach, which is more big picture.
I think there's one around disease, and if you break down disease into dis and ease, and think of ease as no stress and everything else, that actually the dis is the opposite of. So the opposite of being at ease is disease, and therefore all of these things that you said around your diamond or hexagon or whatever size shape we decided it was in the end, those things all link into that discomfort, disease, etc. And I think that's such an interesting concept, and being able to look at your cows and see that disease before it becomes something like mastitis or lameness, etc.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, my personal opinion, and thank you, Owen, is that anybody who has anything to do with cows should at least do the initial course, without a doubt. I just think it's so, because even the guy on the tractor who just feeds, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say just feeds, because he does more than just feed, but you know what I mean. He still needs to be able to see what those cows are doing and identify that there's something not quite right, to therefore go, we need to make a change. And the poor tractor driver, I've got to be honest with you, my courses usually gets knocked, because there's usually the good pictures of the feed not being spread all the way along the front of the feed face like it should do, because somebody doesn't want to get out and open the gate. So I'm sorry if you're a tractor driver, you get knocked in my course quite a bit by some of the people. But then we know, but I suppose that's what we're here to explain. There are various then supplementary courses that go on as well, aren't there? There is one that's just on fertility. There is one that's just on feeding, which are probably my two favourites. There is one on hoof health, udder health, young stock, robots. Can't remember.
Transition cow.
Oh, yes.
And special needs.
Yes, dry to fresh is a really good one. And then the stress-free stockmanship. But there's about 10 courses in total, isn't there, when you do them? And they're all really interesting courses.
I think the other great thing about when you're delivering CowSignals as well, I think if seeing is believing, because we're all really practical people, aren't we, working on farms, like, and I think we read a lot of things and we hear other people saying things. But I think the good thing about the CowSignals course and I know, Andrew, you do quite a lot as well, and across the UK, is that it's like tell me, show me, involve me. So you kind of, talking about this is what CowSignals is, and we talked about CowSignals Diamond, and then we're saying, and here's some examples of it. So we talk, what do your water troughs look like? How often are you pushing your feed up? So it's like, then you show me. But then actually what we do on farms is we give people, a plastic glove and a clear plastic cup, and go and scoop a cup of water out and see what the water looks like, grab a hold of the stuff in the bottom of the water trough. And so I think from a people signals point of view, it's not just your traditional, let's go to a meeting and sit and listen to a PowerPoint and then have a bite to eat and go home. It's, it's more practical, it's on farm, it's really hands-on, and it's getting involved, which at the end of the day is how a lot of us learn, getting involved and doing it and seeing it.
It's about being interactive, isn't it? To me, the courses are interactive. It's like, ask your questions, let's talk as we go. I mean, for anyone that's not done a course, it's basically the first half of the day is in, let's call it a classroom, but it can be the farm kitchen table, it can be a meeting room, it can be whatever it is. And then once you've had lunch, it's then out and spend some time amongst the cows going through some preset questions to follow up with what you've learnt. And then
it's like a checklist, isn't it, Andrew? Really, a checklist, so you don't forget things.
Yeah, that's a better way. And then it's back in the classroom again to go see through what everybody saw, because everybody sees something different, don't they? And what you might see as a bigger weakness than somebody else, and it's just balancing up and seeing the different point of view and trying to, as you say, see from the cow's eyes to make that cow's environment better.
And if I can complete the circle on that, I like the fact that it uses that very simple approach of drawing up 3 lists. What's going well?
Yep.
What can be better?
Yep.
And what can we do? And you can apply that to any farm or any situation, as long as you have the right atmosphere and I guess this is where the people skills come in, because we don't want to feel any host farmer. We don't want them to feel uncomfortable. And equally, we want to encourage delegates and the other people there to share their thoughts in a way that isn't overly critical.
Yeah.
But that simple approach, what's going well, what could be better, and what can we do, is a really
those
nice
opportunities for change.
Yes,
yeah,
we like that.
We like that.
But it's
yes, that's a nice expression, and that's better, isn't it, than what could be better.
But it's also, like you're saying, Owen, it's being receptive to you're saying opportunities to change, but it's being receptive to change, isn't it? And even when you think, there isn't going to be anything there, because I know I've hosted a couple up at the Southwest Dairy Development Centre, and you look at it and it's a cow palace compared to many places, but we still found little bits that actually could just be done that little bit differently, that potentially could make life that little bit better. And I know that's why we went up there. We were asked to sort of go there because they had a little problem or something that they wanted to improve.
And I think that'd be true for most dairy farmers. I mean, if you're a dairy farmer in today's age, you've got to be doing a pretty good job, because
yes,
because it's been survival of the fittest over the last 20 or 30 years, hasn't it? So for every farm where you're doing a CowSignals workshop, it is incremental gains. It's all about the incremental gains. It's not necessarily starting from the very bottom of the mountain. It's just, most dairy farmers are 95% there. It's just the little incremental bits that they can do to either improve their performance from a profitability point of view, or improve their own lives from a sort of work-life balance point of view, or to improve the cows' lives, or probably a bit of all 3.
And I guess it wasn't in there originally, but it's now about sustainability as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if you can increase, is it from 3 to 5 lactations, which has always been the aim of CowSignals, is to have longer living cows. It decreases it in 30% methane, if I remember right off the top of my head, which surely that's got to tick a box for a lot of milk producers, or processors. So it's got to be good for your business in a number of different ways.
it's really that fine tuning, and fits in nicely with sort of a lot of businesses are talking about lean management, and as you said, in that those sort of incremental gains, etc. And I think it just is another tool in the box to just implement those sorts of things on farm.
One of the little bits that I like talking about is Yerp always talks about waiting cows, doesn't he? And I remember him saying waiting cows are your best advisors. And it's those little snippets like that. So, ask yourself.
It'd be worth just explaining the waiting cow, what a waiting cow is, Joe, because it's a good example of it's a CowSignals kind of word.
Yeah.
We know what it is.
I guess it's standing and looking at your cows, which you do a lot, and looking at the herd in general, and asking yourself, if there's a cow just standing there, why is she waiting? Because she should either be waiting to get in the water trough, waiting to get into the feed fence. She might be hanging around for bulling or waiting to lie down. But if she's not doing any of those things with intention, then, asking yourself why is she just standing there? And Yurt would then say, if you start digging a little bit deeper, is that because there aren't enough comfy beds, or is it just the bit where she likes to lie is taken up? Or is she standing to get fresh air? There's lots of different reasons depending on your system. I don't know if you want to jump in here, Owen, Andrew.
Well, I was going to say, sometimes I'd say it's making the time to look at the cows, isn't it? I mean, I tell a story, and I admit I was young and dumb and stupid. We were still in North Queensland at this point before we moved to Victoria, and we were looking around at a few farms. Like we looked at the one in Catherine in the Northern Territory, and we looked at one couple in New South Wales. And we went to this farm in New South Wales, and this farm was owned by one of the two families that between them controlled 20% of the liquid milk in New South Wales. So, reasonable enterprise, had about 4,000 or 5,000 cows. And I'll admit, I say I was only mid-20s, so young and dumb. And this guy was there leaning against the fence. And I'm thinking, come on, you lazy bugger. Come on, you should be getting on with some work, not just sit there looking at the cows. Yeah, a good thing I didn't say that out loud, because he's the guy that owned the whole lot. So, it's spending that time to look at your cows and see what they're doing and what signals they're giving you. Are they waiting cow? Are they, do they want more light? I mean, a classic, I know I've been on another farm before, and I got asked to see there, and I said to him, you need some more light in here, is the first thing I said. And he went, no, I'm right. I'm like, no, it's too dark. And he was robots, and he said, I've got lights over the robots, but I said, the rest of the shed is too dark. Anyway, we kept talking. Anyway, he admitted that when he had to do his collect list for his cows, when he wrote them on the back of his glove, like most people do these days, every time after he got a cow, he had to walk outside to read the next one on his list, because it was just too dark in the shed. It's just, sometimes it's the simple little things, like ensuring you've got enough light. And actually, if you do that, I've seen it on several farms, I'm sure you guys have as well, you can increase your milk by a litre or two a cow a day, and that's a simple difference that can make a difference and will pay for itself in a relatively short period of time.
Going back to Joe's waiting cows, I was always told a waiting cow is your unproductive cow. That's the one that's not being productive, because if she's lying down, she's gaining more litres. If she's drinking, she's probably increasing her dry matter intake. She's all of those sorts of things.
Well, it's simple things like the lying down, isn't it? Except for every extra hour of lying, it's an extra litre of milk produced.
It's amazing, those sorts of figures, isn't it? Absolutely amazing.
And from a feet point of view, obviously, you'd rather she was lying down. You don't want to stand in on the concrete and, in whatever conditions that is. You'd rather her feet would dry in a lying in a cubicle. I'll always bring it back to feet.
Well, I won't disagree with you, Joe. Everything comes back to feet, doesn't it, really?
Yeah. Well, she can't walk, she can't do anything else, really, can she? Let's be honest.
Well, and again, there was a discussion I was having just this week about that extra litre of milk production. That it's always been a CowSignals thing. It's one of the things, actually, I do get pushback on about the evidence for that if a cow lies down for 1 hour longer, they give more milk, because the evidence is quite complicated around lying times and milk production, because the high yielding cows actually lie down for less because they spend more time eating. Let's say a house cow might spend 5.5 hours eating if she's peak lactation rather than 4.5 when she's late lactation. So that impinges on her lying time, and therefore the high yielding cows lie down for less. So complicated stuff. But to cut to the chase, the conclusion that we had amongst ourselves was that a big impact of the low lying times, this is for house cows on concrete in particular, is because they go lame. It's just got a relationship with lameness, and lameness is a knobbler for cow performance, including milk yield. So whether there's anything more complicated than that, it's difficult to know.
There isn't, is there? And as you say, I know when I was still relief milking, I remember, it was a herd. They tried to do everything they could right in terms of beds and everything, but at that point in time, they were still milking through an auto tandem, and it was taking me what was it? 240 cows were taking like 4 hours to milk, and that's what the difference was. Is some of those cows were standing around for 8 hours, and it just has a knock-on effect on their ability to lie, their ability to eat. Something's got to give, and if you can get okay, let's be blunt, CowSignals like the robots because they're up and down, and that's they're done quickly. But like when we talk about the time budget, isn't it? If they're still around waiting to milk, and yes, it takes your life a bit longer if you have more groups to switch between and things like that. But actually, from a cow's point of view, it's better. They can make more of it, more better use of their time. You've just mentioned something that just reminded me of another example where science is catching up with CowSignals. I don't know if you've come across BetVision AI, Andrew. Yeah. You're nodding, and I don't know whether you've had anyone on the podcast. Bobby Hyde is the guy I know who's sort of very much behind that. But it's fascinating stuff, technology, where they're using a camera. It's got to be housed cows. A video camera to record the cows, and then using AI to work out very accurate time budgets for every cow in the shed. So you can work out lying times, lying bouts, feeding times, feeding bouts, and tie it into your performance, and whether or not. And this is why. Well, this is, I think, where it's exciting to think how technology might help us. If you make a management change here, do you see an improvement in the time budget that you would expect, for example? And that's really fast-moving area of science. Oh, the world's already been taken over by AI. Forget about Terminator. We're already there, let's be honest.
I know, and didn't you do like, was it A Day in the Life of Cow 5?
I did. Yeah, so this is over 10 years ago. 216. A Day in the Life of Cow 216. That was it. I wouldn't expect you to remember, yeah. And that was like a real sort of, I mean, looking back now, an analog version of BetVision AI. So what I did, Joe, is it was for a research project on something else to do with flooring. I set up, I got a company to come in and do a time-lapse, set up a time-lapse camera in a robot shed. It was set up high so you could see all the cows in the shed. And it took a high-resolution photograph every 10 seconds. So quite different to just a normal video camera or GoPro or CCTV, because I wanted to be able to track where I was following 5 cows, or I intended to follow 5 cows, where they were at any one moment in time. And I could only do that with a high-resolution video or high-resolution photographs. So, Joe, this is before AI. I had my footage, one photograph frame every 10 seconds for a 24-hour period. And literally, I mean, on my computer, I didn't print them off, I'm not that stupid. But I was going through photograph after photograph after photograph.
You were ahead of the curve there, Owen.
And logging. I only did it I started off doing it for 5 cows. It was a Jersey herd, and I'd marked these 5 cows up by sticking some fluorescent strips on their backs, different shapes. And by the end of 24 hours, there was only one cow 216, who had her fluorescent strips still left on her, because the other cow, there had been Jerseys, they're very curious things. They'd licked each other's strips off. So that was a blessing in disguise, because I did only have to do a detailed sort of analysis, if you like, or log of what this one cow 216 did in her 24-hour period. But I did a really, really detailed time budget for that particular cow. So it wasn't just the amount of total time she spent feeding, for example. It was how many times she went to feed, and how long each feeding bout was, and different things like that. And
what were the highlights of that bit of research?
The highlights?
How long did you do it all?
So yes, it was a 24 hours of footage, Andrew, and it took me. I mean, I didn't work through the night, but I remember it took me 3 solid days of just sitting in front of my computer, just like flicking through picture after picture, because I was obviously not going through them in 10 seconds. If I'd done it in 10 seconds at a time, it would have been 24 hours solid. But yeah, it took me ages.
Does it scare you, the fact that now with AI and machine learning, that probably would have been done in?
Yeah. Yes. Well, yes and no, because Sarah, you asked the question, what did I learn? I mean, what was the highlight? I mean, it was boring sitting through the photos, and it kind of wasn't really, because I learned so much about, because I was just looking so closely at this one cow for such a long period of time, about one of the interesting things for me was how the social hierarchy, get an idea, an insight of how social hierarchies are kind of created in a herd. So the cows spent a lot of time doing sort of head-to-head weaving. So they would face each other, maybe 10 feet apart, and just wobble their heads a little bit. And then the least dominant cow, presumably the least dominant cow, would then walk away. And then, the most dominant cow who stood her ground moves up the hierarchy a little bit. And I wasn't aware of that. I just wasn't aware that's how they kind of established that hierarchy to such an extent. But there was a lot of just standing, weaving their heads, walking away kind of activity going on. Was that the highlight? Maybe. So many highlights.
Yeah, but you had fun by the sounds of it, Owen.
It was a really good project. I think I learned a lot.
And
it's been superseded by better technology now.
But if you, from what you did then in that case, and what's been done, you mentioned with Vision AI, how do they tie in with the budget that CowSignals has used probably for 25 years?
So it ties in very well. So a lot of the stuff that CowSignals, CowSignals has this thing of adopting science that's been done by other people and translating it into something that's very easy for farmers to engage with. And a lot of that work had been done by visual observation with students in some housed herds in Wisconsin. And there's a guy called Nigel Cook, who is he's a vet over in Wisconsin, but he came from Britain originally, who sort of co-authored a lot of those papers. So I was aware of Nigel Cook's sort of time budget stuff, and that's what's used in CowSignals. And Cow 216 followed that pretty well. Nigel's study was bigger in the sense that it included more animals, but it wasn't as detailed in that it didn't do it as granularly as my single cow, because I could have told you what she was doing absolutely any second of any day. But it tied in very, very well, Andrew, really. So basically my cow did lie down for just under 12 hours a day.
Yep.
She did it in 6 bouts, and the average lying time for her was just over, I'm going to say just over 2 hours. It was the median lying time. I mean, that was what she typically did. Is she lay down for about 2 hours, and she stood up, and then she'd go and eat, and then she'd lie down for 2 hours and stand up and go and eat. But she did that. She repeated that cycle through the day, as you'd expect, or as you'd hope.
So really, it followed what you expected from the CowSignals. So again, it's backing up that as you say, the CowSignals. I mean, I've got to be honest, I don't know where a lot of it comes from, but it's obviously got a scientific background, and it's just put in a way that makes it easy for people to understand, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're just appreciating that thing that cows, they have this eat, lie down, chew their cud, eat, lie down, chew their cud, repeat cycle, and how important it is to try and encourage that to happen in a housed environment, like it happens in nature, if you like, or and certainly when they're outside, where it's easy for them to lie down and eat, because of the effect on rumen health. If they have lots of little feeds throughout the day rather than, let's say, 3 or 4 big feeds, they're going to eat the same amount, so it costs the farmer the same, but the efficiency in which they can digest that feed is so much better if they have it in lots of little feeds. And you'll get more bang for your buck. You get more milk for the same amount of feed input, and that's down to rumen health. That's down to the fact that the rumen is sort of coping better with this little and often feeding, because that's how the cow was designed, really. And there's so many little things that a farmer can do to try and improve those number of feeding bouts, like get rid of dead ends, like reduce the stocking rate so they're not overcrowded, like reduce overcrowding at the feed fence, Andrew, like that's why it matters for that tractor driver to open the gate and just deliver to the last 12 foot of the feed barrier, because all those things don't necessarily influence feed intakes. She eats what she eats, but it massively influences the number of feeding bouts, the number of times you'll go and have a fresh feed.
Exactly, and it all makes a difference. You say, if you've got rumen health, it knocks on to everything else, doesn't it? Because if you've got poor rumen health, it's going to affect so many other things as well.
So earlier you alluded to the fact that cows actually see the world differently. Do any one of you want to sort of comment on that, as to perhaps how cows do see the world and what that means for them?
We covered this in our summer round. I think we're all quite excited about this topic. And the big thing that we talked about is the cows' eyes are obviously in a different position to ours, i.e. on the side of the head. And although they're quite big, deep set eyes, they actually have quite limited vision, which we all know that. We all know that if you walk behind a cow, she probably can't see you. And we all know that she has limited vision at the front. But one thing we talked about during our summer meetings was, how because of the way the eyes are set, she has very poor depth perception. So sometimes, for example, if it's a really sunny day and there's lots of shadows, if you're moving cattle down a race, then she can't always tell if that's a hole or if it's just a shadow. So what we talked about was how you can work with cows and, moving slowly and quietly to allow them actually to sense check things. And another really interesting thing we talked about was how, not just with their eyes, but how cows rely on all of their senses, because they obviously can't tell us anything. So they rely on touch, and they rely on hearing, and they rely on taste. So you quite often find if you put a new foot bath in, or you've got a new handling system, they'll use like their tongue quite often to check something out. They'll sniff it, they'll try and look at it, get quite close to it. And it's them sort of making sense of something. Because at the end of the day, they're just worried that they're going to be eaten at all times, in the sort of pecking order. The prey cow is historically a prey animal. So it's them just sort of looking, is this safe for me to walk through this footpath, to go around that dark corner, to step into what is a shadow, but I'm not quite sure. So we had a really good discussion about, and where we fit when we're handling cows. So, training teams that it's really important that we don't walk in that blind spot behind the cow, but we actually make sure she can see us. So we're either on one side or the other. And actually, when we were planning the meeting, Owen gave me an absolute gem, which I hadn't heard of before. I'll let you jump in, Owen, about which side cows prefer us to stand.
Yeah, that was an absolutely fascinating one, that was. I've used that myself a few times with people, and they're like, oh, didn't know that.
So the test is, if you stand behind one of your cows in the blind spot, which way will they turn to see you? And they don't always, but Sarah, try this at home.
I think I might know the answer, because I'm probably just as geeky as you guys, but I would guess anti-clockwise, so to the left.
Yes,
because they prefer to turn to the left. They prefer to, and it's also isn't it their brain and their ocular connection to the brain? I don't know.
So my understanding of it is that as a prey animal, they like to see their predator through their left eye, because their left eye is attached to the right brain, and their right brain processes danger. So because they prefer to see you with the left eye, if you're standing dead behind them, they'll turn anti-clockwise. So it's not that they've got a preference normally to turn left or right. Cows in field don't always turn anti-clockwise. They turn both ways. But when there's a predator and they want to see the predator better, they'll turn to see the predator in the left eye. So in order to in an ideal world, if we keep our cows as settled as possible, we'll be in their left field of vision rather than their right field of vision. And that is why I think we drive on the left-hand side of the road, because we used to lead horses.
The same reason.
So that they could see us through the left eye again.
How clever is that?
Makes sense.
But they don't drive on the left-hand side of the road in Australia or America. No. So I don't know how that.
They do in Australia.
Oh, do they? Is that
Yeah.
And I
left?
think all
They're
of
left.
Europe,
Same
isn't
as
it?
us.
Yeah, they do. But I think that kind of comes. I mean, horses. People always know that they'll lead a horse on the person's right, and it's like when you're showing cattle, you'll always lead the cow on your right, and I think it's because the animal, both predator animals, they like to see us through their left eye, so they'll be easier to
we were
handle.
talking about Temple Grandin earlier as well, weren't we? And the fact that when she designs races and things, that circular
Yes.
and, if possible, to be anti-clockwise. And again, I think for the same reason, isn't it? That
So the handlers, anyone, will be always on that left eye. Yeah.
I was going to say,
Yeah. Well, yeah.
could you imagine if they all turn left all the time? It'd be like watching the Indy 500 round the paddock.
Depends how fast they were running.
But no, that's fascinating. So like you were talking about the cow depth there, Joe. Like years ago, I remember them saying, they don't like the curb off the back of the bed above a certain height. And at the time, I mean, it was only, again, late teens, early 20s, whatever it was. I had no idea why that was. I just knew that was a fact of why. Whereas this sometimes, I found CowSignals fills the gaps in from knowledge maybe I had, but didn't necessarily understand why they were what they were. And it brings everything together in such a way that makes it understandable for people when they're working with cows to appreciate more why they do what they do.
And Joe, that depth of perception links back to your sort of foot baths and foot health, doesn't it? With steps down into, and explain a bit more about some of those things.
So cows prefer to see, so rather than a flat, if you're building a footbath, rather than just having a flat surface and then a straight step down bath, that's actually, given what we just spoke about, it's quite hard for cows to sort of sense, am I going to fall in there? Is this the sort of North Sea? Whereas sometimes if we put a step there to stop them, so there's a step before they step in and build the footbath up rather than down, then they're much more comfortable with that. But I think at the end of the day, if you're using a footbath, the more routine you have, obviously cows get used to that. And in turn, the quieter we handle them in new situations. So some of that is just giving cows time to see where you want them to go, because this, not only do they see in a different way, but they see very slowly, like their perception is very slow. I think it was 12 and a half times slower, was it, how they see the world than us? So it's really important that we move very slowly. Like traditionally, we walk quite quickly and cows walk quite slowly. So giving cows the time and space to go, right, you want me to walk through there? Or, it's that gate in the corner. It's quite often we're busy and there might be a gang of us, and we're jumping up and down, or you've got teams jumping up and down. But actually, if we back off and put one person in charge and give them a bit of space, then quite often they do have a light bulb moment in a cow world and go, you want me to go through there or around that corner?
And I guess some of it goes back to, their size versus our size. We can turn a corner quite quickly. A 750 kilo cow is going to perhaps take a bit more time to do that.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like a big drum, isn't it, with a leg on each corner. They're quite unwieldy, really, aren't they, to sort of move in a really responsive way. So the slower we are with them and the slower we handle them, then the easier for them to respond.
Sarah, can I ask you a question?
Try me.
And it relates to what you were saying before we went live on air, and it was that you wanted to do enough. You wanted to do one, and it was about, can stockmanship be taught?
Yeah, or is it innate? Is it
innate?
Yeah.
Just tell me a bit about that.
It's just a theory that I've got, that certain people almost seem to have that intuition around animals, isn't it? And I wonder if it is something that we're born with, or actually can we learn to do that? And I think perhaps where CowSignals comes into it, it might be helping some people to learn how to do some of those stockmanship skills, isn't it? If it isn't innate, then we do need to learn them. And CowSignals is appears to be a really good way, step by step, to take people through that.
I'm so sad you
I
didn't
know.
get to do the Nuffield
So
Trials
I got
on
too
that subject.
old.
Someone needs to do it. I was doing some foot trimming training on Monday with a bunch of guys and on a farm, herds people, just some training on farm. And one of the guys, I know because one of his colleagues has said, he's not great around the cows. When he's milking, the cows always kick units off and that kind of thing. There's more. And I noticed that he's a lovely chap, really nice, very good at the foot trimming, but he was a very high energy individual, really, really enthusiastic. And I just suggested that it's a great thing to be in high energy, but just turn the dial back down 5% in terms of the way, because almost all of his movements were just a little bit faster, a little bit 5% faster than mine. I mean, I'm perhaps a bit getting old now and I'm not so fast. And I wonder whether that, because that's innate. That was an innate thing about this guy. He was a very high energy individual. And I think the cows didn't like it because it was probably a little bit too fast. They were these little movements. And it was so hard to pinpoint why. You know, he wasn't shouting at the cows. He wasn't hitting the cows. He wasn't doing anything obviously wrong. It was more that he was just a little bit fast in everything he did. And I think that was giving him difficulties in the handling. So that's like,
it picks up.
That's an innate thing.
Yeah.
Some people are just naturally very sluggish and slow with the way they move, and maybe that innately gives them a better ability to work with cows. I don't know. But someone's got to do that.
That comes down, wouldn't you call that cow sense? Because you've made me think. I remember when I was doing some ET work in Victoria, and my ET technician had an assistant had just started, and we were in the crush. Couldn't do it on the back of the platform like we normally do. We were in the crush, but instead of walking out and around the building to get back to where she needed to do with the petri dish after she'd flushed, she walked straight in front of the cow, literally straight in front. So just upset the cow, and not just thinking, oh, I need to just give her a nice wide berth so that she knows I'm not. And it was just straight across the front of the cow. And of course, with ET, you've got to be very precise about your positioning and everything. So, yeah, you're right. It probably say you actually, it's a fair point, Owen. Actually, he's just that 5% faster, that 5% more energy, and the vibe he gives off is the cow's like, whoa, that's too much, that's too intense. We all have people we find too intense sometimes. It's the same sort of thing.
I think I alarmed the Arla guys because we're giving these Arla workshops over the summer that you've talked about, Andrew and Joe. And I would sometimes say, the best, what you should be doing is encouraging your herds people to smoke, particularly roll-ups.
Don't say that.
I did, yeah. They won't invite me back next year because I mean, it's a tongue-in-cheek thing, but people who go and collect cows, if they are a herds person that smokes roll-ups, what they tend to do is they open the gate and then they stop and they roll themselves a cigarette and they smoke that cigarette, and it just allows the cows to flow.
Do you know what? Thinking back, I seem to remember having a similar conversation. I think it was with Mike Jones when me and Neil interviewed him up at the Southwest Dairy Development Centre. I think Neil was talking about, was it the guys? Yeah, exactly. The guys that smoke with the roll-ups. He said, don't do it. But he says what we used to, as you say, just like you're saying, they're just that little bit slower about letting the cows do their...
Bad for their health, but brilliant for the cows.
But they're letting the cows do their thing without worrying them and chasing them. I mean, I've certainly, you talk about that, I've heard stories. I had a 2IC in Victoria, Kiwi, and he said similar sort of thing, but in a different way. When they got the cows, they had to walk behind the cows. They weren't allowed to ride the bike home. They went out with the bike, got the cows, but then they had to leave the bike in the paddock and go back and get it later. So they weren't trying to push these cows to get in. Yes, we walk at 4K, a cow's 2.5K, but they were deliberately slowing them down by making them leave the bikes in the field.
I'm going to go back to your lot to be said for the rolling your own cigarettes as well. That you think of leaning on time to lean on a gate and watch. It's back to those things with CowSignals again, isn't it? Just taking time to just watch while you're just taking 5 minutes to just
I mean, it could be modern and encourage people to vape.
Could be. So. I don't know. Maybe we just need to just encourage more stillness and 5 minutes.
Well, actually, Yeah, I think someone made the comment that actually a lot of younger people would be on their phones instead. So they'd open the gate and then they'd be scrolling through their phones.
Or don't do what I used to do sometimes when I was younger, up too late doing whatever. And I used to fall asleep on the bike behind the cows and then suddenly wake up, micro sleep, wake up thinking, I must be, late. And it's like, no, the cows just wandered on. And it was only like 5 minutes later. But I'm not encouraging anyone to do that at all. But I used to do that quite a bit in my younger days.
So you're going to edit all these bad habits out of the podcast.
No, we've all got them. We've all done them. But on those bad habits, as much as I hate to say it, I'm looking at the time and thinking we do need to wrap this up. And I know we could just keep going because it's a subject we're all very passionate about.
We're nerding out, aren't we, Andrew?
Yeah, I know. I've done a bit of that recently.
It's Andrew's favourite pastime, isn't it?
I love cows.
You're allowed to. You're allowed to. It's all right.
What this whole podcast is about is cows. So, any words of wisdom, Joe? We'll start with you first, if we can. Any last thoughts from yourself?
I think we're all busy. Like dairy farming's hugely busy, and we spend a lot of time moving around quite quickly. But mobility scoring is a good example of a cow signal in that we do just allocate that time to stand and watch and look for lameness, and cow signals is no different. So if you can just, work with your team and encourage them to just start smoking.
We're off the smoking habits. We're trying to put good health here,
so
Joe.
Encouraging, that it's all right just to slow it down and spend some time and look at the signals that your cows are giving you. Some mobility score is one of them, but as we've talked about, there's lots and lots of different things that she's telling us through her body language and her behaviour.
Owen?
Okay, so we'll stick away from the go and have a cigarette, but instead go and have a cup of tea. So whenever stress levels are rising in the cows and the humans, and the two things are usually linked, then just go and put the kettle on and just take 10 minutes out, have a cup of tea, have a biscuit, and then we're not so hangry as well. So go and have a cup of tea. That would be my thing. Put a pause in, have a cup of tea whenever stress levels are rising in cows or humans.
Sarah?
I just think all of it is just a really exciting topic. And I think the more we understand about cattle behaviour, the better we can actually provide for them. And those happy cows are going to be our productive cows. They're going to have better welfare. There's actually going to be that better consumer perception. And it's going to be better for the farmer's pocket as well, isn't it? If we've got non-stressed cows and non-stressed humans. So let's learn as much as we can.
Well, what's the tagline? Happy cows, happy farmer, happy planet. But I mean, really, yeah. I mean, I guess I've stressed it. I think anybody who has anything to do with cows should do the initial CowSignals course at least. And I've had a lot of young people on there who don't have a lot of experience with cows. But on the flip side, even if you're someone experienced with cows, I think you'll get something from it. I've had a few people on the course that one even said to me, I'm 60 years old or whatever it was. He's in the supply industry. I thought, what am I doing here? And at the end of it, he said, I really enjoyed it. I learned so much that I hadn't realized I knew, but you just put it in a different perspective and gave me a different view. So I would encourage anybody who's listening to this, whether you're directly on farm, even supply into it, because I've done a couple of sales teams for people, we've all trained various different people for the CowSignals. Look at a CowSignals course with somebody and do it. I'd really encourage it because it just gives you a fresh perspective from how you look at your cows and how you interact with them, definitely. And then if the initial one is great, look at doing one of the other ones, whether it is the stress-free stockmanship that we all, covered a little bit of for Arla during the summer, or it's the robot one or fertility one or the dry to fresh one or whatever it happens to be. But on that, I guess I'd like to say thank you very much to you all. And it's a goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me and great to talk to you.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Chewing the Cud podcast for the UK dairy industry, brought to you from the southwest of England and listened to around the world. Now for the really boring bit, I'm afraid, the legal disclaimer. The information provided during this podcast has been prepared for general information purposes only and does not constitute advice. The information must not be relied upon for any purpose, and no representation or warranty is given to its accuracy, completeness, or otherwise. Any reference to other organisations, businesses, or products during this podcast are not endorsements or recommendations of Chewing the Cud Limited. The views of Andrew Jones are personal and may not be the views of Chewing the Cud Limited, and the views of Sarah Bolt are personal and may not be the views of Kingshay Farming and Conservation Limited and any affiliated companies. For more information on the podcast and details of services offered by Chewing the Cud Limited, visit www.chewingthecud.com. Thank you and goodbye.